Never Work a Day talks to folks that are pivoting their lives to follow their passions. We talk about pitfalls, misadventures, hilarious and heartbreaking, meet the outstanding individuals, and learn about their continuing journey. I'm your host, Nickey Frankel, purveyor of platforms and creator of play spaces, and I'm so excited to bring you the stories of these extraordinary individuals. Our guest today is Marisa Löwenstein. Here's a bit of info about her. Number one, BFA in Industrial Design from the University of Buenos Aires, Argentina, and an MFA in Scene Design from Boston University. Number two, she worked as a director for visual merchandising for Donna Karan, French Connection, and was the global scenic director of creative services for Ralph Lauren. Number three, Vedic meditation changed her life. And in 2019, she became a certified Vedic meditation teacher after rigorous training in New York and India. Number four, she is currently a creative director designing everything from photo shoots to window displays to architectural interiors. Number five, she is the founder of the Conscious Creativity Lab, which leads courses and workshops in meditative drawing and transcendental creativity. And now let's talk to Marisa. Hi, Marisa. It's so nice to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So excited. I've been looking up for this the whole week. So.
Oh my God, me too. So great. I found out about you through our mutual contact, Andy,
who I married.
Who you married. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Recently. And he thought, oh, you guys are going to get along great because I talked about meditation. We talked about design.
Yeah.
And it all just came together. He said, oh, you should meet my fiance. I said, I had no idea. And then we met in an event that I was producing, and we ended up talking for very long and pulled me away from working. And now you're here, so it's great.
And Andy took all the credit. As soon as we walked out, he said, I knew that you two were going to get along perfectly. So this is awesome. And then we kept talking, and we discovered that we had more and more and more in common.
I know, it's crazy. Actually, there's a lot that we're not even going to talk about here because people will be bored.
That's all right.
By some of it. But we'll just get into that. Your origins of work, I guess, was just that you started in theater, right?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Argentina. I trained in industrial design, and then somewhere there I read that an industrial designer was doing special effects for movies, and that took me, I'll give you the quick version. I ended up applying for set design programs in Boston to do theater. I did my set design theater program there, and then one of my teachers convinced me to move to New York, and I started my career in New York working in theater, assisting Broadway designers, doing my off-Broadway shows, props, all of it.
It's crazy. It's crazy because I also, not to get too deep on this because nobody wants to hear about all this, but I also started in off-Broadway theater and doing props.
That's awesome.
And what's the craziest thing you ever had to do for theater? I have one, but you should do it.
One, there was a list. I was working in a prop shop, which was how I used to make more money than set design.
Of course.
And they gave me the list of props, and throw in there was get a goat. And it was like 5 boxes of cereal, one bowl, some spoons, and a goat. And I was like, are we talking about a real goat? I was like, yeah, it's a real goat. And surprisingly, it was the least problematic item in the list. Suddenly, the crunchiness of the cereal was the whole problem of the production.
Geez. I had to make a strudel over and over and over again for a show. I'd never want to eat strudel ever again because the consistency had to be exactly the same.
Yep.
Crazy. And theater is a big burnout zone, right? I burned out from theater pretty fast because it's such a, you're expected to work for the art and work for very little money, I suppose.
Totally. No, I haven't heard the word, this is for your portfolio, more often than in theater. We can't pay you, but there's going to be critics in the audience. So this is going to be good for your career. And I did it for a while until I realized that, good for my career wasn't going to pay the bills.
Exactly.
And I was getting older and getting tired of having roommates, and living in New York was getting more and more expensive. So the moment came when I had to kind of reevaluate my passion, what I love doing, what I had to do. And that's the, kind of like the sad part of all the creative, a lot of creative professions that they're run out of passion. And because we love doing it, and we're not good at, usually designers, we're not good at talking about money,
Right.
then it becomes a bit of like,
Well, it's not supposed to be for the money. It's
not supposed to be for the money. Yeah.
It's supposed to be for our own creative souls, and the
Yeah.
money will show up if we are passionate about what we do, question mark, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's hard to go and pay your bills with your passion,
Yeah, exactly. And you ended up doing corporate work from theater.
Yeah, so a friend of mine back then saw what I was doing, and he was actually in the fashion business. He was a fashion designer. And he said, this was at a time in New York where a lot of companies were doing amazing window displays. It's
like Barney's and
Barney's, Bergdorf's, even Macy's was doing great windows. Ralph Lauren, Donna Karan, all these amazing designers. So he said, looking at your work, you can use those same skills and do them for a company. Get a job in a company, and you can do design windows. So I started searching around, and I met this woman back then who had a store in the meatpacking district when the meatpacking district was just pasties and
still meat.
And meat. And she gave me my first chance to do a window display. So I built a bit of my portfolio, and from there I started applying to companies and got my first corporate job. I got paid every 15 days, which was, I couldn't believe it.
Right?
I couldn't believe it. I used to call my boyfriend and be like, I got paid. And 15 days later, I got paid. And he's like, yes, it's going to happen every 15 days. You're going to get paid.
It's a shock. It's a shock when it first happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
And you that probably was really exciting for a bit, right?
It was very exciting. It was exciting to have a job where I could use my skills and learn new skills. Right. Learn how to collaborate in teams, learn how to work in a corporate company, learn how to manage, how I liked being managed. It was super exciting.
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose with anything, everyone gets burnt out with doing the kind of fast-paced work, because the more you excel, the more you get.
Yeah.
Right? And the more gets heaped on you, I suppose. Or what was your experience
and
with
not
that?
knowing how to handle it and how to balance it.
Yeah.
There was, I had the determination and the skills and the luck and the support to build up in the corporate world. I kept moving from one company to the next until I was, I ended up being in charge of a creative department, and a lot of travel, fast deadlines, working overnight because we were installing window displays. So it's like overnight
do it at night,
work.
Right?
You have to do it at night. You have to manage a lot of vendors, a lot of like personalities, big crew. So eventually it started to feel demanding, not in a healthy way. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, there were a lot of demands
Yeah.
on your time, and you were stretched probably in a lot of different directions. And then, I mean, and at this point, were you working for Ralph Lauren? Was that your big project? Was that your big job?
Yeah. So I moved from. So I was working in Ralph Lauren first in Donna Karan. That was my first big leap to manage teams. That time for me was the most demanding and unhealthy in a way, because I didn't have a practice to be able to maintain my...
So unhealthy for you looked like what? I know what my unhealthy looks like.
Yeah, unhealthy for me fell in a practical level. It fell not sleeping well, not being able to sleep, to eat correctly, feeling like I was putting up fires the whole time, not being able to make the right decisions, and also feeling on a personal level that I was becoming somebody that I didn't like. Because of all exterior demands, I really couldn't stay true to who I was, and even like felt who I was. It was all about running around, do a lot of doing, achieving, without really knowing why, you
Yeah,
know?
just keeping your head down and doing the work and not really
Yeah,
paying attention.
hard to set boundaries, hard
Yeah.
to say no, hard to say, listen, I'm going to take care of this, but this is really not mine. This is not my responsibility.
Yeah.
And be able to move on from there with clarity and determination, you know?
Yeah, you didn't have any, it felt,
None of that.
yeah, of course
Yeah.
not. Of course not. And then you're not really paying attention to your sleeping and your eating and yourself and your schedule and
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
reflects on everything.
yeah,
you know?
it ends up chipping away and making you feel sort of, what am I even doing here? And I read that there was sort of a tipping point in terms of personal stuff
Yeah.
that was going on.
So I was managing a team, a creative team, and then at the same time I was married back then to a different person, and my ex was starting to feel the first symptoms of what 2 years later we learned that it was bipolar 2 disorder. We didn't know anything about it. Back then, mental health issues were quite nobody really talked too much about it. I felt ashamed of what was happening, and it was a lot of trying to contain him. If you know anything about bipolar 2 disorder, the first symptoms are a lot of like out of control behaviors. Could be drugs, could be overspending, could be sex addiction, could be drinking, a lot of things that people do to cope with the instability that they're feeling. For the partner of that person, it becomes a lot of like trying to control
And manage.
what's happening without really knowing what's happening.
Right.
So imagine the toll that takes
Plus-
to a person, plus work, plus traveling, plus trying to keep it together,
It's so
overall.
much.
So I really felt that I was going crazy because I was working, trying to be good at what I was doing. And underneath, there was this current of, I don't know what is happening,
Well, and stability.
instability.
Yeah.
So this is like more than 15 years ago. 15 years ago, meditation was really not something that people talked about. It wasn't, at least in my circle. I come from a very pragmatic.
It's also considered, I think 15 years ago, I can speak to that, it seemed a bit of a luxury, or it seemed a bit of
Yes.
something that if you had extra time, you might get into it.
Yeah.
As opposed to.
Totally. It was that extreme, or, it was like a crunchy granola hippie type of thing that we don't really, people in the corporate world.
Why would you have
don't
time to do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
But I read somewhere, I think that it was an article from Seinfeld, from Jerry Seinfeld, who's also a big meditator.
Is he?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, big
explains a
meditator.
lot.
Yeah. And he was saying how, so not to jump forward, but the type of meditation that he practiced and that I practice, we meditate 20 minutes twice a day. For a long time, he skipped one of the daily meditations. And he was saying how if he hadn't, he would probably have been able to be much better at writing and at producing, and he would have done it for longer.
Right.
And I was like, wait, if Jerry Seinfeld's meditate, maybe there's something, about this. And, he was talking about clarity of thought and your mind quiet down. So I researched. I was like, whatever, I'll just look into it. I Googled how people meditate, and the information about this introductory talk to meditation came up. It was near my office. It was free. I was like, I had nothing to lose. I sat there, and I was like, if I get there and the guy or the woman who's teaching is like beads and toga and incense, and I'm out. I'm not going to do this. But I went there, and it was like, all professional-looking people, and the teacher looked very professional and super clear. He talked about the science behind meditation and all the benefits and how it was something that, the investment of time had a big return. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. When you're in those moments, in those like tipping points,
Anything, life
you
raft.
try
Yeah,
something.
of course.
And I took the course, and that first day when he taught me my mantra and the way of how to use it, I was like, there's something about this. I felt a change. And that started, that threw me on this journey of meditation. And once I had that practice in my daily routine, I was able to start making changes at work, in my personal life. It was gradual and smooth, but very poignant in a way.
Sure.
So I started seeing the demands of my life. Nothing in my exterior life changed. The demands were the same. I still had the same job. I still was married to the same person. I was still dealing with the
But
same.
your perception had shifted, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
The friction that I was feeling about what was going on out there changed. And I was able to navigate all these challenges much smoothly and productively and with grace and with clarity. And I started making changes. I started changing how I behave in my relationship. Eventually, that, relationship ended, which is something that my ex-husband actually had been wanting to do. And I was holding on to this situation that it had run its course.
Right. And you hadn't been able to see that because you were so inside of it. Yeah.
Totally. And scared
Yeah,
of change and
of course.
scared of like, what am I going to do next? And, sometimes what we know, even though it's not sustainable or productive or healthy,
is safer.
it's safer.
It's safer to stay in what you know than what you don't know.
Absolutely.
Right?
So I was able to leave that relationship, and eventually this other opportunity came up to work for Ralph Lauren at a time when the company was doing amazing work in the creative fields.
Yeah.
They still are, and I'm still connected to it. And even though changing one more thing didn't seem to be the smart or thing to do, I applied, went through the whole process, and I started working there. And the demands it was a much more demanding job.
Yeah.
But having meditation and having change, meditation allows you to make more changes.
Yeah.
I always call it the magnet for like healthy behaviors.
Right.
I handle it in a much more smooth way.
Well, you're able to get away from it a little bit and see what you need, I suppose, from it. Because now, I guess where you are now is, so you started the Conscious Creativity Lab.
Yeah.
Which is a good name.
Thank you. I saw the lab where we are.
I know. We're also at a place called the Founders Lab.
Yeah.
It's a good one because it means that you're still sort of figuring it out.
Yes.
That you're in basically a laboratory of discovery,
Absolutely.
I suppose. So
Yeah.
I think one of my questions was, why is it a lab? But maybe we just answered that question. Are you still in discovery as to what creative consciousness is?
Yeah.
Probably all the time, right?
All the time. And also, I don't, I started teaching Vedic meditation, and then I founded the Conscious Creativity Lab. And both with Vedic meditation and with all the other techniques that I teach, I don't want to promise or push or try to convince you of anything. This is a lab in the sense of, I'm going to teach you a technique. You do the experiment. I'm going to give you the steps of how to do it properly.
Right.
You try it.
And see what you think.
If it works, keep doing it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, don't waste your time.
Right.
But you have to do the testing. You have to do the exercise, and this is why it's a lab.
It gives the onus to the other person to be able to investigate.
You have, your life. Now you're introducing a new practice.
Right.
Okay, this is an A/B test.
It's a good approach.
Yeah.
It's a good approach because I learned how to, I meditated for a little bit with Kundalini Yoga and I liked it, but I also knew I was saying things I didn't know what I was saying. Mm-hmm. I was chanting in a room with a lot of other people. It felt vaguely culty.
Right.
For lack of a better term, sorry. But it wasn't that, hey, see if this works for you. It was like, you're going to do this now because this is what we're all doing.
Yeah.
And that, I think for certain people that are trying to find their way through it and are skeptical, that can be a little scary or daunting as an absolute.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why I love skeptical people or skeptical students. And that's how I was. I didn't go in there or to my first introductory talk. So the introductory talk that I'm talking about, to learn Vedic meditation, and this is like some historian says that it has like 5,000 years, is 5,000 years old. It's a technique that is ancient and has stood the test of time. It has always been taught in a very similar way. The first step is to come to a talk and to hear how this technique works, what are the steps, what are the benefits, where it comes from, learn the history, learn the science behind it. So then if you decide to go ahead, you are ready, you have your first class, and then you're ready to go.
Yeah.
When I sat in that intro talk, I didn't feel that anybody was trying to convince me or anything of anything. It was like,
it was
these are the facts. This is information. Up to you. And I think that when you are skeptical, my teacher and I always laugh because I was the one who was digging her heels, asking about everything, really kind of looking at it with a bit of a side eye of, I'm not sure what this is all about.
Yeah.
But when you practice it correctly and you have the experience and it works, there's no denying it. The science, the history, it's all fine. But if you don't feel it,
then it doesn't. It doesn't really.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't make intense. Yeah.
And what you said, there's a lot of practices out there that is like white knuckling, try to convince you, a bit culty, people that you don't really feel related to.
Well, it's even just not even convincing. I think it's more that this is what you're going to do now.
Right.
It's not even, hey, let's convince you to do it. You're in this class. You're in this place. This is what we're all going to do.
Right.
And you're going to do it too.
Right.
It's been a lot of the experiences that I've had, but I think it's great that your first experience into it was informational.
Yeah.
Because it gave you some backgrounds.
Yeah. We always say, we don't say no, like N-O. We say no, like K-N-W, N-O-W.
As
like
in to know something.
To know what is this all about. Know the right steps. Know the right technique. And then try it. And then when we teach Vedic meditation, it's a 4-day course. And that is very important because that means that you are having an experience and then you are coming, let's say you learn to meditate. You have your first experience. On the second day, you are coming to me and tell me, listen, this happened. I'm feeling this, or I noticed that. And then I can tell you the why is happening. It's not the other way around, that I'm going to
you're going to impose something, right?
And then you are meditating 2 days, and you're like, listen, my partner mentioned that today I reacted in a different way. Why is this happening? And then we go into like a whole talk about stress and how stress affecting you and why we're not making clear decisions when you are stressed and tired. And so it always feels, the truth resonates. If I tell you something and it's truth, deep down you're like, oh yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense to me.
If you feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so you're still working as a creative director today, right?
Yeah.
And so, is your life balance better now that you have the meditation? I'm sure the answer is yes, but.
Yeah. If not, it would have been a big waste of time, but.
How is it different when you think of yourself when you were younger to now you're able, it's a vast.
Yeah. What's interesting is I feel that actually learning to meditate had brought me to how I actually was when I was younger.
Huh.
We are born and we have this really amazing sense of self, of who we are, what we want to do. Sometimes we feel like I was never one of those people that was like, oh, since I'm a kid, I knew I wanted to be a designer. I didn't even know that what I do existed when I was a kid.
Right.
But there's a sense of what you like, what is charming to you, what is attracted to you. And you start doing that. Then we start growing up and somebody tells us, oh, that you're not good at this, or you should do this instead. And then we start having all these experiences, and stress makes us less clear about what we want to do, and fear and self-criticism
All of it gets piled on.
pile on, we start really losing that connection to the self as the big S. And what for me was the biggest benefit of meditation, besides the top 5, better sleep, better health habits, eating habits, all that, it was the reconnection to who I was.
When you were before any of it?
Before any of it.
Really?
Before marriages, before stress, before trauma, before all of it.
Finding that.
Finding that and be like, this feels right. And so what was interesting is like when I left my corporate job to do my meditation training to teach, my idea was to stop with the design world. I had burnt out, I had done it, I had been doing it for quite a while. The part that I was enjoying the most was the part where I was developing my team. I had come to a point where I was already a great designer. I knew what I was doing. It didn't feel challenging, but I was really enjoying getting the team to work great, managing up and managing down.
Yeah.
Really knowing how to talk to my bosses and really doing the best for my team. And I thought, I can live this, teach people to meditate, and I'll be doing the same in a way. I'll be developing people and helping people be their best. I did my teacher's training, and then I came back to New York, and I reconnected to the design world, and I realized that I still loved it. And then design became like a pleasure because it's like a second nature.
Right. If you feel you can do it intuitively. Right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I understand.
Yeah.
As someone that also was or used to be a
Yeah.
designer.
No, totally. Yeah.
That you know the right thing that needs to go there. You know what needs to happen.
Yes.
It's just a matter of the execution and of getting the teams to be on the same page and
Yeah.
getting your clients to be on the same page as you.
Yeah, and just like really understanding what's important to people and why are people reacting, how they're reacting
To the work.
to the work,
To you.
with each other,
Yeah.
to the company, what are their frustrations. And when you see a bit more clear that part of a job and that part of your team, everything just works better.
It's true. That's true. And my next question was going to be just how design and meditation work together. But I
Yeah.
think you kind of just answered that. But also, I mean, when you're designing, since it is intuitive, and I understand that point of view, what does the meditation inform any of your design choices, or is it more about how you're working with people, or does it allow you to see a clearer vision for what you're designing, or?
All of it. If you think about meditation as being this, we were just quickly talking about David Lynch before.
I was going to say our guardian angel of the episode.
I know.
Because Marisa was thinking about David Lynch as she walked to the studio, and then lo and behold, there's a David Lynch book that I love on my bookshelf. And now he's in the studio with us again.
I know. You were saying hi to me and my eyes were just like...
And I saw you looking over there, and, he's been a big inspiration for me for a long time.
Yeah,
and it's interesting
that's
to think
awesome.
about that he's a huge advocate of meditation and your style of meditation.
Yeah, so I practice the same technique that he practiced, which was amazing for me to discover because I also loved him as loved his movies, loved his work, loved how he acted in life, all of the work that he did. And, he wrote this amazing little book. It's a beautiful book, and it's called Catching the Big Fish. So he says, if you want to come up with little ideas, you stay in the shallow. Little ideas, I like small fish. They stay in the shallow. Now, if you want to catch the big fish, you have to go deeper. You have to go inside, and you have to go deeper. How, the medium of going deeper that he talks about is meditation. because meditation allows you to move from the very active, very noisy, superficial levels of thinking to the very deep, quiet levels of thinking where you touch this place of pure potential, where creativity, ideas come from. That's one side of it. The other side is that also once you feel these ideas, which is very subjective, as you know, as a designer, you also need the self-confidence to bring them back out and pursue them.
The storyline behind them too, right?
The storyline, the conviction, you mentioned before, knowing when is the right time to act on this. All that is clarity that meditation gives you. And not in a mysterious metaphysical way, but in a, when you're not stressed and tired and overworked and anxious, you can see clearly what is the next right step of action.
Yeah, because the creativity is there. You just need to kind of remove the noise to be able to access it, I suppose.
Totally. Exactly.
Right? And it allows you to go deeper.
Yeah.
I mean, so, I can't really sit still.
Yeah.
I find meditation when I ride my bike, for example.
Yeah.
That's when I get my best ideas. But
Right.
I mean, I feel like, what is the action of staying still? How do you kind of train yourself to drop in? Because that was always something I had a problem with in terms of just being able to not be conscious of what's around me. And this also goes back to the line of I forgot my mantra. So, what is the advice that you give around that initial sort of settling, I suppose?
So there's a lot of different types of meditation, and we can divide it. The three big groups are concentration, which is the type of meditation that you see a lot that is about focusing all your attention in one item with the hope or objective that everything else disappears. This is extremely hard to do. Just as describing it sounds forceful. And
if your eyes closed, focusing on one thing?
Eyes open. Usually you see the focusing on a candle or, something like that. You're trying to almost look at everything through a really small zoom lens.
I mean, and that's what the advice they give you if you want to do any kind of balancing exercises, or even as a dancer, if you're trying to do a bunch of turns, you pin spot something.
Right, which works for the body.
Correct.
Does not work for the mind, because this is not really the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is to move around, to look for solutions.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's another type of meditation that this is where mindfulness sits a bit, that is about contemplation, that is about notice what you are thinking about, notice your thought, pick the thought that is more pleasant and try to stay on that. Again, very hard to do.
Yes.
The type of meditation that I practice, and this relates to the staying still, we actually work with the nature of the mind. So this is all about the connection of mind and body. So Vedic meditation, we use these specific types of mantra that the mantra has been chosen specifically for you by a teacher. Right. So that is the very first step. The meaning of the word mantra comes from two different words. The first part of the word, man, comes from the word manas, which is where we get the word mind. Second part of the word, tra, is where we get the word attraction, tractor. It has pulling power. So the word mantra itself is like a mind vehicle. It's something that the mind climbs onto to get somewhere else. Now, there's a lot of different types of mantras. You mentioned you have learned the mantra.
Well, I mean, I learned how to do Reiki. And then I forgot my mantra. Yeah. And then I couldn't do Reiki anymore because I don't know what it is. So I can't drop back in. And I tried to remember it and I tried to find it. And then one day it was just out of my head. Yeah. And there was nobody who could tell me what it is.
Right.
And I mean, that's the thing. If your mind clamps onto it, you could get there. And I could get there.
Yeah.
For a bit.
Right. So Reiki, I'm not that familiar with the mantras that Reiki uses, but that's one type of mantra. Then there's mantras that you chant out loud. The mantras that we use are never to be said, except when I teach it to you. They're never to be said out loud because the power of those sounds, the mantras are sounds with no meaning. And the power of it is that they self-refine. So as you start thinking, the mind finds them absolutely fascinating. As as the sound starts getting more and more faint, more and more quiet, the mind follows it and starts going through these levels of thinking that David Lynch is talking about. So the mantra gets quieter and quieter and quieter. The mind follows it until there's a point where the mantra disappears. And you're left in a state of no mantra, no thought. This field of pure creativity where all ideas come from. We stay there for a few seconds, a few minutes, then we come up. And we bring out all of these benefits. Come out of a meditation and you feel refreshed, you feel recharged. It's almost like plug into your like super powerful battery.
I mean, so you get to this point of creativity, and then do you actually think creative thoughts, or does something? I mean, because it's not conscious thought at that point.
That's a great question. So sometimes it happens that during meditation we have these like ideas. Most likely during meditation, you're thinking about lunch, you're thinking about, I need to meet Nickey in the afternoon. Very different than what people think meditation feels about. And this is why sometimes the apps don't work for people. Because you're sitting there, you're meditating, your mind is full of thoughts, which is the right process of meditating, and you're thinking that you're doing it wrong. Sometimes, in between all those thoughts, there's an idea that bubbles up that feels a little bit different. Our recommendation is it's fine. Let it sit there. Keep the eyes closed. Finish your 20 minutes twice a day. That's how we meditate. And move on with your life. If that idea is relevant, it will come up again. So when you open the eyes and then you're walking to work or you're in the subway and suddenly you're like, oh yeah, okay, so you know what? Instead of calling this person at this time, I'm going to call him later.
It's even that. It's just that. Right?
Even
it's
something simple as that.
Or it's finding a boundary, or it's something. It's sort of a problem-solving piece. So if we're thinking about creativity, it's not like what do I paint today or whatever.
No, it's never fireworks.
It's a small, subtle sort of momentary change in the way you would do something that maybe relieves you of a responsibility or stress or attention potentially.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's the realizing how to sense it and realizing how important it is to follow it.
Interesting.
I might be sitting here, I'm like, okay, I left my car 2 blocks away, and I'm like, okay, I walk to the left, and I turn right, and there's my car. I might get out of here and be like, I'm going to walk the other way. If I don't know how to recognize that as an important idea
or shift,
I'm like, why? It's longer. Why would I go that way? There's something that is important for me to do or to see, or for somebody to see me, or for something to avoid that is pulling me in the other direction.
It's paying attention to that.
It's paying attention
and
to that.
And not sort of bringing yourself down and saying no.
Or being so stressed or tired.
Or I actually really like that no means also no.
Yeah.
I think that's a great...
And that's it. And I think that Julia Louis-Dreyfus said, no is a complete sentence. It's like, no is no. And when you have the clarity of thought and your body's rested and you feel confident about it, there's no explanation. There's no excuse. There's no like, oh, well, no, but, or, you said no and the other person, I don't know, blinks and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. No, but I mean, we could do it, You're getting yourself in deep trouble now.
Right. Because you're going down in a different path and you're not paying attention to what you're actually thinking. And I mean, I feel like for meditation, I really like the meditative drawing idea because I feel like that's an interesting way to drop in. And I've been, I guess we all sort of do kind of doodle and meditation drawing, I suppose. But you do teach that.
Yeah. I started to teach meditative drawing. It's a technique that I developed, as a designer. I draw quite a bit, sometimes with very specific objectives, sometimes just to generate ideas, and sometimes for play. And I realized that, there's something similar when I draw um, without wanting a specific
Without
outcome,
intention.
without intention. I was like, there's something to it. There's something that it feels quite similar. And I started looking into it because, as I said, for me, the science behind any of these practices is very important.
Yeah.
And there's all these studies saying how, when we draw, your brain acts in a specific way, your body relaxes, your metabolic rate drops, all these great benefits. And I loved it that it's a tool. Vedic meditation is not something that we do, I'm a bit nervous, I'm going to do it. We just do it 20 minutes twice a day, and that is like your baseline. I love teaching people other techniques to complement the toolbox. What I do if I wake up and instead of getting on my phone, or if I want to break a habit, what else can I do? And because I'm a designer, and because I love anything related to creativity, I came up with this technique of drawing that bypasses the self-critic. The reason why most of us stop drawing at some point, because somebody told us either we can draw, you're not good at it, or we are good at it, and now we're going to post it and sell it, and now it's a business. Now we have all this pressure. So it's a great technique for people that can't draw, think that cannot meditate, think that cannot draw, or they think that they're not artistic. Just a very practical, step-by-step technique to bring a bit of like quietness and, again, moving away from this really active layers of thinking to something that is more quiet and much more enjoyable for the mind, for the body, and like a simple technique to adopt.
Yeah, just anything that you would like to draw
Anything,
in general.
yeah.
And I find that if I'm just sort of doodling, that's much nicer than if I actually draw something and then I think, oh, this is kind of good. I'm now going to make it try to look better, and then I'm not enjoying myself as much as I did. I do want to ask you about transcendental creativity really quickly. What is that?
So this goes back to David Lynch.
Okay.
So this is
all roads lead back to
all
David
roads
Lynch.
lead back to David. This is a way of accessing creativity. And when I talk about creativity, I don't talk about artistic pursuits. I talk about creativity like a tool to live a better life, a way of knowing what to do at the right time. That is creativity, coming up with an idea, knowing who to call, knowing what to cook, knowing when to leave a job. It all takes creativity. When we try to pull creativity from a thinking level, from the cognitive side of ourselves, we get ourselves in trouble because it's usually very reason-based, which is a great side. We need our intellect. But when creativity comes from there, it has so many parameters. Transcendental creativity is a way of accessing our creativity through meditation to a place where ideas are pure. And then in how to engage our intellect, because once we have these ideas, okay, how do we make them happen? Now is where we have to get very specific. But when creativity comes from intellectual gymnastics of this is good, this is bad, okay, but if I do this, cons and pros, and we are this tangled knot of stress that cannot even see what to do, beyond. So transcendental creativity is that. It's just that. It's like how to access our ideas, our power, our best selves through meditation.
Okay. So it's actually the output.
The output.
It's the output of that. That's very exciting. Well, so I wonder, why would you teach? Why would you why would you feel the need to teach? I mean, there's one thing where you feel this and this is working for you.
Yeah.
But you mentioned you love leading teams.
Yes.
Which so do I.
Awesome.
And I do find it stressful because you want to be able to lead the best way possible. So I guess, you like teaching because you like being able to foster people through an experience, I suppose?
Yes, for me, meditation has been a practice that has been so effective. And again, coming from somewhere where meditation was not, it's funny for me, for people that meet me now, and they're like, well, but you're so calm, or you always know what to do. It's like, this is not how I used to be.
Right.
So I know that meditation worked for me.
That you evolved through it.
I evolved through it. And it's like at some point in my life, I just got this very clear sense of start teaching. The time has come. Pass this along. And it was just, again, that sense, that conversion of time. I was coming to a point where I had been thinking about resigning from my job, didn't really know what to do next. I had been taking all these advanced courses that you have to take in order to eventually do this finisher program to teach Vedic meditation. I had been doing them out of my own interest. And then my teacher was going to take 5 people to India to do these 3 months of really intense studies. So to graduate and to get your certificate to teach. It wasn't really even in my radar. And then one day I was like, this is what I have to do. And the month after I resigned, and 2 months later I was in India teaching, studying to teach. And everything's been coming together. I think that, when, again, talking about the intellect and intuition and what's important, it was a very scary decision in the sense of it was leaving behind everything that I knew and knowing that it was the right thing to do. I was being called to do this for whatever reason, right. And to have the guts to follow it.
Well, you're going to teach me. So you're going to teach us all some breath work now, right? You're going to teach us something. I'm going to get ready. So Marissa's going to do a breath session with us, a meditation moment to us, right?
Yeah.
A breath exercise.
So we're going. Yeah. So we're going to do. We call this a body.
Everybody,
feeling.
Join us if you want to.
Yeah.
I'll just be breathing into the microphone.
Okay. So.
And we're gonna take some water.
Let's take a bit of water.
This is our ASMR moment. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. So we call this body feeling technique. So this is a really great technique to do when we are caught up in thoughts. Maybe we're having a conversation that is making us too overwhelmed. We can practice it anywhere. This is not Vedic meditation. This is a whole different thing. Again, another little tool to have in our toolbox. And this is based in the concept of that whenever we move our awareness to the body, we move away from what's happening in the mind. So, first thing that we're going to do, which is also not what usually people think about meditation, is we're going to sit comfortably. Okay. So usually when we see people meditating, it's in some strange position that brings already a little bit of anxiety to the mind. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do it differently. We're going to sit comfortably. We're going to have our back supported, perfect how you're sitting with your hands on your lap. And if it feels comfortably, we can close the eyes. If not, we can just lower the gaze. And let's start by taking one nice deep breath, breathing in through the nose, and letting all the air out through the mouth. Let's do that 2 more times, breathing in through the nose, stretching the exhale as we breathe out. One more time, breathing in through the nose. Stretching the exhale as we breathe out. Next things that we're going to do is we're going to bring our awareness to the sensation of the breath in the body, which means just notice how your body feels as you breathe in and out. Notice any shifts, little moves your chest as you breathe in and you breathe out. Without forcing it, without trying. And now let your awareness move throughout the body, just noticing how the body feels. Without judging, without trying to fix anything, just noticing. And maybe now your awareness is picking up a more noticeable sensation. Somewhere in the body there's something that feels just a little bit stronger. There's a bit of tension between the eyes. Maybe the temperature of your hands. Might even be the feeling of fabric against your skin. We don't need to hold our attention there. Notice and let our awareness move throughout the body, just noticing different things. And you might notice that your mind starts picking up thoughts, moving around, and that's fine. Just notice what we're thinking. We bring our awareness back to the body. And now, nice and gentle, bring our awareness back to the breath. You might notice that the breath has quieted down. Maybe it's a bit more shallow, a bit slower. Now breathing in just a little bit deeper, breathing in through the nose. And letting all the air out through the mouth. And one more time, breathing in through the nose. Nice long exhale as we breathe out. And let's do that one more time. Let this be the deepest breath you've taken all day. Taking as much air as you can, breathing in through the nose. Expanding the lungs, relaxing the shoulders. And letting all the air out. And whenever you're ready, at your own pace, go ahead and start opening the eyes.
Thank you.
How was that?
I feel refreshed and relaxing. Very nice. Thank you.
You're very
It
welcome.
was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being
I love it. Always open to talk meditation, creativity, design.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I'm your host, Nickey Frankel, saying if you do what you love, you never work a day. The show is created by Preview Media. Our producers are Eleni Silos and Stefan Vlaschke. Technical support and editing by Toriako and Jasmine Jackson. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself and those around you.